Watch the precise angle of the right cleat planting into the artificial turf, exactly 1.2 seconds after the snap. Look at the violent, deliberate drop of the hips, the sudden deceleration that sends the opposing boundary cornerback sliding 3 yards downfield, grasping at absolute air. There is a sheer, unadulterated violence in that route stem. A mechanical perfection in how the shoulders stay completely square to the safety until the absolute final millisecond. This is not just running a route. This is psychological warfare executed within the chaotic geometry of the gridiron. The collective breath inside Jerry World catches in a vacuum of anticipation. 70-something thousand souls watching one singular entity dictate the entire physics of the play. And that relentless, suffocating pressure placed on a secondary, that pure isolation of talent on the perimeter, is exactly why I, Carlos Eduardo, have to step into the film room today and deliver the uncompromising, brutal truth about what it means to carry the ultimate burden for America's team. From my film study, what we are witnessing on the tape is an evolutionary leap in wide receiver mechanics. I am tired of mediocrity. I am tired of the casual fan looking at the stat sheet and thinking they understand the intricate violence of this game. If I am being brutally honest, you do not truly comprehend the magnitude of what CeeDee Lamb is doing, unless you watch the all-22 coaches film in agonizing slow motion. You have to isolate his pre-snap reads. Watch how he identifies the leverage of the nickel defender. Watch how he processes the defensive shell, recognizing the slight hip rotation of the strong safety that gives away the disguised bracket coverage. This is the gridiron philosopher at work. While everyone else is playing checkers, reacting to the whistle, he is calculating angles, manipulating blind spots, and bending the entire defensive architecture to his absolute will. We talk about the triple threat in this league, but right now, looking at the tape, CeeDee Lamb is his own triple threat. He defeats the press with a devastating release package at the line of scrimmage. He stacks the defensive back to win over the top with sheer vertical intimidation. And he possesses a spatial awareness in the underneath zones that makes zone coverages look completely obsolete. When I evaluate the tape, I am looking for the clutch factor. I am looking at the money downs. 3rd and long, game on the line, the stadium holding its breath, the defensive coordinator sending the house with 0 coverage blitzes. Everyone in the building knows where the football is going. The cornerbacks know, the safeties creeping down into the box know, and yet the result is completely inevitable. The snap, the immediate recognition of the blitz, the sight adjustment, the instantaneous pivot to the exact blade of grass where the pressure dictates the ball must go. That is not just talent. That is a predatory instinct sharpened by the unbearable weight of expectations. But let us talk about that weight. Let us talk about the absolute sheer terror of wearing the star on the helmet. It is a suffocating atmosphere. You do not just play a game in this uniform. You inherit a legacy built by ghosts, forged in the fires of a 90s dynasty that casts a massive, unforgiving shadow over everything we see today. The number 88 is not merely 2 digits stitched into a jersey. It is a royal bloodline. It is an impossible standard. Every single time he lines up on the boundary, he is not just running against a defensive back from the Eagles, the Giants, or the Commanders. He is running against history. He is being measured against nameless legends whose aura echoes through the rafters of the stadium. That is the true cost of doing business in this franchise. The intense media pressure, the agonizing salary cap strategy that inevitably forces the front office to rely on one singular supernova of talent to carry an entire offensive philosophy. The margin for error is absolutely non-existent. Notice how the opposing defenses lose all sense of gap discipline when he goes into pre-snap motion. It is beautiful, terrifying chaos. I have watched entire linebacker corps freeze, completely paralyzed by the sheer threat of him sweeping across the formation. He dictates the geometry of the trenches without ever putting a hand in the dirt. When he aligns in the slot, the defense has to declare its intentions immediately. Do they roll a safety down? Do they widen the apex defender? Whatever they choose, he already has the counter move loaded in the chamber. He understands that route running is not about speed. It is about rhythm, timing, and the deliberate manipulation of space. He lulls the defender to sleep with a long, loping stride, only to snap off a dig route with such explosive violence that it leaves invisible tire marks on the turf. He catches the football away from his frame, swallowing the pigskin with a massive catch radius that erases inaccurate throws and turns desperate heaves into highlight reel validations of his supremacy. And yet, the burden only grows heavier. Every contested catch, every acrobatic toe tap on the sideline, every single time he absorbs a punishing hit over the middle and immediately springs back to his feet, spinning the football on the turf with that undeniable swagger, he raises the bar. The NFC East is a brutal, unforgiving gauntlet. The rivalries demand blood, sweat, and absolute perfection. When the bitter winter winds roll into the back half of the schedule and the nagging injuries start to mount, the lights only get brighter. The scrutiny becomes a microscope. Every dropped pass is a localized apocalypse. Every missed sight adjustment is heavily debated on every sports network across the globe. But this is what separates the merely great from the truly legendary. The ghosts of the 90s demanded excellence. They thrived in the crucible of this intense spotlight. And from what I see on this film, frame by agonizing frame, CeeDee Lamb is not just surviving in that crucible, he is melting it down and forging it into his own personal crown. Look at the footwork on the boundary. It is an absolute clinic. The sideline is not a boundary for him. It is an extra blocker, a geographical constraint that he weaponizes against trailing cornerbacks. He will run a fade route, pinning the defender against his inside hip, creating a microscopic window that only he can access. He tracks the football over his shoulder with the calm, terrifying precision of a heat-seeking missile. He does not panic when the ball is in the air. He waits for the absolute last fraction of a second to elevate, extending his hands and plucking the ball out of the sky before the defensive back even realizes it has arrived. It is a masterclass in body control, a symphony of kinetic energy and raw, unadulterated athleticism that cannot be taught in any film room. I look at the historical parallels, the way the great receivers of the past commanded absolute respect, and I see the exact same commanding aura. But the modern game is faster, more complex, and significantly more demanding. The coverages are constantly rotating, disguising their true intentions until the snap of the ball. He has to process all of this in real time, adjusting his route depth, altering his tempo, and making sure he arrives at the precise intersection of time and space to secure the reception. This is not a man simply playing a position on a football field. This is a savant operating at the absolute peak of his cognitive and physical abilities. He is the offensive engine, the safety valve, the deep threat, and the absolute focal point of every single defensive game plan, drawn up by the opposition on a weekly basis. If I am being brutally honest, the entire offensive philosophy hinges entirely on his ability to single-handedly dismantle brackets and double teams. The path to the next Super Bowl ring does not run through complicated trick plays or gimmicky formations. It runs entirely through the veins of the number 88. It runs through isolating him in space, feeding him the football repeatedly on the money downs, and trusting that his elite clutch factor will overcome whatever chaotic defensive front is thrown his way. This is the brutal truth verdict for America's team. You either maximize this generational talent, you build the entire framework of your attack around his ability to break the will of the opposition, or you resign yourself to another agonizing chapter of mediocrity and unfulfilled potential. There is no middle ground in this league. There is only the tape, the unvarnished truth, and the undeniable reality that CeeDee Lamb is the solitary force capable of dragging this historic franchise back to the promised land. Would you like me to break down a specific route concept from his latest primetime performance? Go Cowboys!